Hey, one day left. What's up? It's the Culture Detective here, investigating your favorite albums. And yes, this is my last day here in the USA, or the second last day. I'm still gonna be here tomorrow, but I'm leaving tomorrow. So, wow, I can't believe it. I actually cannot believe it. It doesn't feel real, and I'm gonna be going back. Yes, until August 16th when I return. But I'll be going back tomorrow. Anyways, today I'm going to be doing an album review, my final album review of round one of Los Angeles. And that is the latest Wormrot album, Hiss. So Wormrot is a Singaporean metal band, and this is their latest album, Hiss. I've never really covered their music on this channel, and I've never really talked about them at all on this channel. In fact, this is their first album I've listened to myself, but I've always been interested in listening to some Southeast Asian metal. But essentially, it is metal. It is grindcore. And it isn't anything all that groundbreaking or special or anything, but I still really enjoy this album because it hits really hard. Now, this album is 21 tracks long, and even though it has this many tracks, it is only 33 minutes long. This means that most of the tracks on this album are about 1 minute to 2 minutes in length. They're all really short and immediate. Some of the tracks here are even less than 1 minute. Another thing I want to talk about is the album cover. This album cover is sick. It slaps. I like it. So the album starts off and ends off with water noises because of the album cover, and it's like a woman is slowly creeping up from the water to stare at you and then just to go down again, and while she's staring at you, it's just absolute nightmarish chaos. So we have the album opener, The Darkest Burden, which is an explosive opening with shrill screams, nasty riffs, and blast beats. Wormrot is turning all their cylinders to 11, whatever that means, firing on all cylinders, turning up their performances to 11, and it is just a blast. And then we have the second track, Broken Maze, which again has amazing energy, top-notch performances, but the only thing that sort of disappoint me on this track is sort of this sour melodic hook, the sung hook, which sounds a little sloppy maybe, but aside from that, it is still a really solid track. That is followed with two of my favorite tracks on the entire album, Behind Closed Doors and When Talking Fails, It's Time for Violence. So the former of which is one of the catchiest and most hard-hitting tracks on this album. We have some really raw, guttural yells. And I just love how unpredictable this track is. In fact, every single track on this album, despite the fact that they're all really short, they're all really unpredictable. They all sound like one track sounds like 5 different tracks smashed together because the rhythm, the riffs, the vocals, the flow, everything changes constantly. And I just really like that. It's just so unhinged. And then we have my personal favorite track on the album, When Talking Fails, It's Time for Violence. I love the yells. I love the refrains, the group shouts. It's so goddamn punk. And I freaking love that shit. Next up, we have the track Your Dystopian Hell, which is a short but very effective track with its jangly, disorienting guitars. We have the track Hatred Transcending, which is another nasty banger with a very spacey ending. Again, the drums and the guitars, they're so unpredictable. They can go any direction. They can go faster suddenly, they can go slower suddenly, and there's no predicting what comes next. And that's part of the fun of listening to this album, actually. Then we are followed with Doomsayer, which is a 37-second long track that's super immediate, kind of a straight banger. Then now we are entering the more special tracks of the album. We have the track Pale Moonlight, which sees the band almost go into a more no-wave direction because this track features no guitars. There are only drums and vocals. And for some reason, the drums on this track have this sort of hand drum quality to them, which makes it sound even more organic. The track Caesar has these high-pass vocal effects at the back, which is really cool. And the track voiceless choir starts entering black metal territory with the melodic guitar riffs, which are actually really well done. It really gives the track a sense of atmosphere. And then we have the track Grieve with the unhinged strings. When I listen to this track, I feel like I'm being assaulted by a swarm of mosquitoes, and it's really fun. I'll tell you that. And the track Sea of Disease goes to a more of a heavy metal direction. That is followed with Noxious Cloud, which is one of the more basic cuts here. And the track Desolate Landscape has these melodic chords, and it sort of slows down at the end, but overall a really solid track. A similar sounding track would be the following track Spiral Eyes with the rising guitar chords, which is really nice, but I wouldn't say this is one of the more memorable tracks here. Finally, the album ends off on 4 really solid tracks. Vicious Cycle, this track incorporates glitches, like the track just glitches and stutters suddenly with the tickety drumsticks. I really like it. The track Weeping Willow continues with the breathy, glitchy pauses a la Code Orange's latest album. And on top of that, we have the unhinged crazy strings again, which I really love. Finally, we have All Will Wither, which is a breathy, spooky, shady, shadowy track with nothing but drums and guitars. And the whole track is very spooky in that we have these very menacing, breathy vocals, and it's a fun time. I don't know how campy the band expected this track to be, because it does come off really campy to me, but in that aspect, I also kind of enjoy it. Finally, the album ends off on Glass Shards, which is 4.5 minutes long. This is easily the longest track on the album by a mile. And it is still amazing with the ferocious rhythms and riffs. And if there's one gripe I have with the track, it would be that I wish the track ends off abruptly. I wish all the guitars and drums and vocals just build up to a noisy, explosive climax, and then it just suddenly stops. And then nothing but water noises. I wish it ends off like that instead of fading out. But still, I'm not going to complain all that much. This is a solid metal album. It has so many cool effects. It's got strings, it's got glitches, it's got melodic moments, it's got punk yells and group shouts. It's got a lot of stuff, all in the span of a tight 33-minute runtime. So yeah, solid album. I'm enjoying it. I'm loving it. Huge W for Singapore. Huge W. My favorite track here is When Talking Fails, It's Time for Violence, and my least favorite is Noxious Cloud. I'm giving the new Wormrot album, Hiss, a decent 8 out of 10. So, have you listened to the latest Wormrot album for when it and which you rated, like, related, and subscribe if you want more, and thanks for watching. So, I actually have tons of albums to review. Aside from this, there's the new Kaylee Malone album. There's a Viagra Boys, there's Ken Carson, there is a LaKaylee 49. Black Midi will be dropping an album 2 days later. Same goes for Lizzo. And then later in this month, we have Imperial Triumphant, as well as Jack White releasing another album this year. Perhaps. Look forward to that.